What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with DCKO. And in this video, we've got Lobo fighting Wonder Woman. Now, there is a being of astronomical power who is watching this whole fight go down. But what this does is this initially picks up with round one, keeping in mind, when it comes to these versus battles, it's best 2 out of 3. So Lobo gets his introduction, right? Ladies and gentlemen, rev up your engines and lock up your liquor cabinets. From the farthest, darkest reaches of space, he is the intergalactic bounty hunter, the last Zarnian, the biker of the cosmos, the main man, Lobo. And Lobo just says, right, the main man don't lose. He just runs out of victims, which is probably one of the best lines that I think I've ever heard. And then Wonder Woman gets her introduction, hailing from the hidden island of Themyscira. She is the chosen champion of Olympus, the Amazon enforcer, Wonder Woman. Now, one of the things to keep in mind here, right? Everything that you are seeing, all the people who were here, the buildings, the whole 9 yards, this is all created by the Heart of Apocalypse. So while they are technically in these places, they're being transported around to different locales. And so Wonder Woman steps into this ring, and Lobo literally tells her, right? If we're talking metal, then you better hang on to your bangles, princess, because you are in for a world of hurt. And so the announcer comes in and he says, all right, fighters, you know why you are here. To advance to the next level, you must compete in a fight to the death. And he says, best 2 out of 3, no rules. The only way out is to fight. And Lobo just says, pucker up, Buttercup, because I'm going to put your insides on your outsides. And so the fight begins. And Wonder Woman, right off the bat, gets a gut punch, right? She's just like, too low, too high. Like, literally just keeps taking it to Lobo. And so that's where he's just like, if you want to fight like a man, then daddy's got something for you. And just like grabs her hair and just starts pummeling her in the face. And as soon as he gets the upper hand, what does he do? Ever the narcissist, right? He just kind of starts showboating, gloating to everybody, right? He says, yeah, that's right. That's your main man. And he says, next time, bring something bigger. And so Wonder Woman lassos Lobo, right? Just like throws it around his neck and just says, my lasso is supposed to make you tell the truth, but I cannot lie. You are the worst. And the reality here is that putting the lasso of truth around Lobo is like putting the lasso of truth around the Joker. You would never want to do that. Like, you don't want to know what goes on in that man's head. And so that's when he responds. And he was like, I'm the fragging worst. He says, you're worse than a howitzer suppository. And just like kills Wonder Woman in one hit. Just crack. Takes her out. Just like that. And then we're on to round 2. Right now, this is when the announcer comes in and he says, fighters may now choose their preferred battle form, as I have chosen a new arena. Fight as if you were Darkseid himself. Now, it's one of the important things to keep in mind here, right? When it comes to DCKO, despite everything you're seeing here and all the glitz and glamour and the pomp and the circumstance, each one of these guys are fighting each other to demonstrate that they follow Darkseid's mentality, because their goal is to get the Heart of Apocalypse and all the power that comes with it. Then and only then will any of them, whoever it is that attains the heart, become powerful enough to face off against Darkseid and to basically stop his invasion of the main DC universe using the absolute universes and all the forces inside. And so that's where Lobo just kind of chimes in to Wonder Woman when she's all decked out in her warrior garb, and he just says, Princess, your royal geekness, I am one win away from walking away with this whole thing. So no good hiding, because I'm going to find you. And when I do, I'm going to grind up every coward bone in that body before the League even has a chance to put your face on a milk carton, right? He says, tick-tock, sweetheart, I haven't got all day. And that's when Wonder Woman jumps into it. Now, do not misunderstand what you are seeing here, right? Wonder Woman looks irritated. She looks frustrated. She's fighting to win. She adores this. That's one of the things that's been established over the years in DC Comics, right? If we're talking about Tower of Babel, or we're talking about A League of One, or the story Hikatea, where she beat the crap out of Batman, Wonder Woman is not like Batman or Superman or really anybody else out there as part of like the main Justice League roster in DC. She is a tried and true warrior, and she will fight to the bitter end, no matter what end comes for her when the fight is over. And so where she initially clocks Lobo, right, he's just like, okay, so you got one on the main man. He says, enjoy it while it lasts, because something about beating you in the last round has got me feeling like I ate my Wheaties this morning. And he says, but just in case you feel like going 3 rounds in the sack instead of the ring, I thought I'd give you something pretty to look at. And he says, you're welcome, ladies. So quite literally, he's making a pass at like these 4 Amazonian warriors, which, I mean, you know, take 4 Amazons in the sack at one time. That's nothing for Lobo, right? That's a Tuesday. And so that's where the Heart of Apocalypse chimes in. And it says, in her ideal form, Wonder Woman has her warrior sisters at her side. Apocalypse appreciates females and their fury. Now, here's also an important thing to understand here, and it's very easy to dismiss. It's very easy to miss it. In the first DCKO battle that we saw between Superman and Captain Atom, it was just Superman facing Captain Atom, and basically the two of them at the height of their powers throughout the entirety of their publishing history. What this demonstrates is you can call for allies, you can call for backup, and I would not be surprised if this becomes an important part of the story in the future. Now, how far-reaching this goes, I don't entirely know, because what you're talking about here with Wonder Woman and her allies, they're just different iterations of her, right? Donna Troy, Cassie Sandsmark, so it's just people who have had the Wonder Woman mantle over the years in some capacity in DC Comics. But nonetheless, right, the idea of having other people join you here is an important caveat. The real question here is it the real Donna Troy, and are these other allies here real people, or are they simply just manifestations by the Heart of Apocalypse? But regardless, this version of Lobo is the New 52 Lobo. In fact, Cassie Sandsmark asks, right, who in the New 52 is that, right? And Lobo just says, your man's never needed no army to fight for him. I only ever needed one. So get ready to get that armor dented. And in fact, he gives him all the middle finger. As that's what Wonder Woman just says, right? This armor has withstood gods and titans, Lobo. It will not yield to a drunkard in eye makeup, which is kind of one of the big criticisms people had of New 52 Lobo, right? That it was less like the classic Lobo, where, as Sal perfectly described him, a roadie for Metallica, and instead he's really more like an emo guy, right? What if Lobo was a fan of My Chemical Romance, sitting around all day listening to the Black Parade talking about how unfair life is? But what's crazy is Wonder Woman shows up here and cuts off his arm, right? And he's just like, hold on a minute, right? Like, what happened to my arm? He's like, have any of you guys seen my arm? Yara is actually 1/2 Amazon and basically 1/2 Brazilian goddess. I don't believe that the Brazilian god heritage is fleshed out. I do know that she's the daughter of Aella, who was an Amazon that basically fled Themyscira. But regardless, she's dope, and she's a hoss. Again, she currently operates under the mantle of Wonder Girl, and she was introduced in DC's Future State, but focusing on the battle at hand, yeah, she literally takes Lobo's arm and just starts beating him with it. And the whole time, Wonder Woman is just like, you may be in a temple, but no evil will answer your prayers here. But of course, as you guys know, Lobo is both functionally immortal, in addition to having a healing factor. Now, when I say he's immortal, I mean he's literally immortal. I mean, I guess technically he can be killed, but he's not allowed to go to heaven or hell. So he's very similar to Thanos in Marvel Comics, in the time that Thanos was banned from the realm of Mistress Death. That's the reason why during Secret Wars, when he was killed, quote unquote, by Dr. Doom, he was actually just sent outside of all existence because he couldn't go to the realm of Mistress Death. Now, we'll talk about that immortality here in a minute, but Lobo, of course, reconstitutes himself, right? He gets his arm back, and then he just says, take it easy, girls, right? There's enough of me to go around. So the whole time he's basically just making like dirty jokes, right, to all these Amazons that he's fighting, and he's not really taking the fight too seriously at all. At least that doesn't seem to be the case. But that's the danger of Lobo, that Lobo will come across as a guy that doesn't take you seriously, when the reality is he does. Because if Lobo didn't take this seriously, Lobo would not be putting in this much of a fight. And he even says that, right? Like, do you call this a fight? And he says, I've had harder Saturday nights in a Dooley 7 cat house. And he says, your main man came, he saw, he fragged a bunch of stuck-up frigid Wonder Girls. But don't worry, you'll get autographs after the concussions wear off, because he single-handedly dismantles them all. And in fact, he runs up on Donna Troy, and it's just like, how about it, doll, right? Like, give me a kiss. I'll make it easy on you. And she's just like, do not get any closer to me. And of course, Wonder Woman comes swooping in and then fights him off of Donna Troy, which leads to everybody else jumping in and absolutely pummeling Lobo. But notice this. This is what it took, right? It took this many people defeating Lobo just to win the second round. Because in that moment, right, he says, you dweebs are really giving me mixed signals here, right? But ultimately, Wonder Woman just goes riding up on Lobo, basically riding his own motorcycle, and in that moment, cuts him in half. And when that happens, she wins. Or at least she wins the second round, right? So at this point, we're tied 1-1. And so the Heart of Apocalypse chimes in again, and it says, to test the full power of two evenly matched immortals, this round will be a series of classic contests designed to establish which of our brawlers is the one true champion. And so the first contest is a galactic slap match where they're just like slapping each other back and forth. The second contest is them literally kicking each other's legs, right? The third contest is chess boxing, which apparently, I don't know exactly how the rules of this work, but in some capacity, if you, I guess, beat your opponent in checkmate, you get to just start pummeling them in a boxing ring, right? A beautiful knockout by Wonder Woman. But it says both competitors are struggling for submission. Lobo is chewing through the shoulder strap because it's card-jitsu, which by itself just seems absolutely bonkers and nonsensical. Here's where things get crazy. The guy who's watching this fight that is astronomically powerful is approached by an angel holding a suit and a bowler hat. And he just asks, time to go. And this guy says, I need to see this for myself. And so you get to the final contest, right? Gladiatorial combat where winner takes all. And Lobo says, do not give me that glare, honey. You know part of you is enjoying this. And he says, I can smell it. One of these days, me and you are really gonna have to get it on. But for now, I've got business to attend to. So he walks off and then comes back with just the biggest guns I've ever seen and just starts unloading, right? And he's just like, and you're just frag fodder standing in the way of me winning this whole competition. The main man is about to be King Omega, and I'll be wearing your skull as a crown. But again, because of her bangles, Wonder Woman can deflect bullets. And that just like pisses Lobo off to no end, right? He's like, you are really starting to piss me off. He's like, just die already. But then suddenly Wonder Woman disappears out of nowhere. And then she reappears, right, with a hook and a chain and just like snatches it into this guy's back. And he's just like, oh my God, right? And she just like starts running chains around him. The whole time he's like pulling these things off of him, trying to get some measure of control for the whole situation. And then finally he has enough. And he's just like, that's the last straw, right? The last straw. And he says, admit it, you have just been dying for me to get my hook in you. Bet you didn't think I'd be shoved between your ribs and ripping your insides apart. And so when Wonder Woman goes to pull a sword, he's like, what are you doing? Right? And in turn, like, she stabs him through the chest, but he looks at her and he says, didn't anybody tell you I'm the big cheese, your main man, the toughest, orneriest son of a gun in this universe, the mean hombre who made a deal with the damn almighty, so I cannot die, right? He's immortal. And that's when you find out the person watching all of this is the Presence. It's literally God, right? DC's version of the one above all. And so in turn, seeing all of this, he just says, I'll allow it. And the voice chimes in and just says, it would seem the entity, aka the Almighty, heard Lobo take his nickname in vain. This can't be good for the scourge of the cosmos, because now Lobo is no longer banished from the afterlife. And so Wonder Woman kills him. And at that point, it just says, Lobo's deal is terminated, and thus, so is Lobo. So much for Lobo issue number 94, where he revealed to all of us that he was banned from the realms of heaven and hell. He could never be sent to the afterlife, so he was just immortal by all standards of measurement. Who knows where he's going to go now, although I imagine we can probably guess which afterlife he would be sent to. But at that point, we jump back to the Justice League Watchtower. Keep in mind, this is what's happening at the end of each issue of DC KO. Darkseid making his move. That when you pick up here with the World Forger, right, once the Forger realizes that Booster Gold has been possessed by the spirit of Darkseid, that the World Forger just says, sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, or in this case, gold with gold. And he says, you are weak in this form, God of evil. You picked an infallible host. If Booster Gold has to die so Darkseid dies, that's a price that I think anyone is willing to pay. And that's when Darkseid says, I wouldn't be so sure. Because in that moment, when the Forger fires back and he says, nice effort, but you're clearly spent, you're only delaying the inevitable, Booster Gold fires up the Omega Beams and immediately hits the World Forger. And keep in mind, the Omega Beams can and will destroy pretty much anything they hit. There are a couple of exceptions, right? Most notably in this story, for example, if the Omega Beams hit the Presence, it probably wouldn't make any difference whatsoever. But the fact is, Booster just says the only thing that is inevitable is when someone underestimates me and they find out how wrong they are. As annoying as you have been, World Forger, at least you served your purpose. That was inevitable. But we still don't know what the main scheme of Darkseid is, outside of entering into the DC KO event himself. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.